I think that older generations would be surprised to learn how much society there is online, how much community younger generations find and rely on online. Internally, I think there's a lot of concern. I wouldn't call it misunderstanding. There's a lot of concern about making sure that we as an industry don't cross the lines that should not be crossed in terms of privacy and data storage and all these kinds of things that we really need to be careful about, especially when we end up with glasses with forward-facing cameras that are on potentially all the time. And how we manage that will actually be the measure of our success as an industry. Science fiction and science fiction movies in particular, or books as well, they help pave the way.
Yeah.
They help um, consumers understand what something is when it actually hits the market. AR has the promise to be the thing that is your friend and guide and gives you deeper understanding of the context and the history of the space in which you move and the people with whom you interact. And that for
Yeah.
me is actually the true promise of immersive technologies.
Welcome to another episode of Immersive Futures, and I'm your host, Martin Makinson. In today's episode, I've been chatting with Leslie Shannon, Head of Innovation and Trend Scouting for Nokia, and author of 2 best-selling books, Interconnected Reality and Virtual Natives. Leslie spent many years identifying technologies that will shape how we work, play, and interact. In today's episode, we talk about how immersive technologies is evolving, the impact of AI, and what the next decade of digital experiences will look like. So without further ado, let's start the podcast. So Leslie, thank you very much for joining me on an episode of our Immersive Futures podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You've obviously kind of spent, many years tracking emerging technologies, during your time at Nokia. I mean, what shift have you kind of spotted early that's now transforming industries?
Okay. So when I started working with immersive things, uh, the the initial vision was actually vision. Everyone was thinking in terms of how do we actually, immersive equals what you see. And I think
Yeah,
one of the biggest shifts that's come that Meta's actually really driven forward with the Ray-Ban. Of course, we had the Bosch and the Bose examples before that, but it's the importance of audio, and and audio is so much easier technically to deliver that I'm actually really glad that we've actually been getting the conversational generative AI um, as part of an immersive experience with maybe not feeling visually immersed in your world, but feeling immersed in a deeper understanding of your world that's possible by having an audio conversation. And so I think our definition of what immersive is has actually expanded, and I think in a good way.
was there a particular, during your time at Nokia, a particular aha moment when, immersive technology really changed how you saw its potential?
Yeah, I actually it was one of the very first times that I experienced VR, and it was 2018. It was at Mobile World Congress Americas in San Francisco, and the Samsung stand had an exhibit from or a demo from a developer called VZ and it was an exercise bicycle with a VR headset, and the two were connected. And so I get on the bicycle and I put on the headset and I'm a tank and I'm rolling around in a battlefield situation with other tanks shooting at me and I can shoot at them. And the tank is very slow. So you have to pedal really hard to make the tank move. And I was completely enraptured. And I spent this is the middle of a conference, right? I'm in my business clothes. I spent half an hour on this bicycle. I wouldn't get
Wow.
off. I had to get all
Yeah.
the tanks. And so and then once I did finally pry myself off, the bicycle and out of the headset, it made me instantly go and buy an HTC Vive headset and an exercise bicycle so I could have this experience at home. But what it showed me was the potential for immersive, things to be able to gamify things that are maybe otherwise a chore because I'm not a super athletic person. Yes, I've worked out in my life, but never willingly. But
I
it's like,
don't
oh
think
my God,
anybody does.
gamifying
Yeah.
fitness? Are you kidding me? Yes, let's go. Yeah. So actually, since 2018, I have been doing all of my fitness in virtual reality. And it has changed it literally has changed my life. And so I'm in it every day. In fact, right after this, I'm gonna go put on I've got my gym thing on here. I'm gonna go get back into my VR headset and do my fitness for the day because I can.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But the idea of gamifying, and yeah, and this is a vision that I still have for the future, because this is where I think that augmented reality glasses, like the holy grail augmented reality glasses, where we do actually have digital overlays onto our physical world. Um, uh, the idea of gamifying things like chores, the idea of gamifying things, as vacuuming, walking the dog.
Yeah.
I think that kind of application has legs. From my experience with what VR has done for fitness, I think AR is going to do to a whole ton of things that we
Mm.
have to do. Let's make them fun. Let's give points for them. Let's gamify our lives.
The potential for augmented reality seems, huge, doesn't it? And even comparative to VR as well, I think, because I know stating the obvious in terms of by virtue of what the technology is, but I think with augmented reality, because you have that, and with mixed reality for that matter, you kind of have the best of both worlds, where it's not that full immersion that you get with VR.
Yeah, and not to denigrate VR in any way, because it's absolutely
Mm,
perfect for
absolutely.
what it is. Right, but you have to I think about VR as like going to the movie theater. It's an experience that is a slightly special experience, but you don't do it every day, and you don't do it all day every day. I mean, unless of course you're
Yeah.
working on VR, in which case you do it every day. But that's but AR has the promise to be the thing that is your friend and guide, and gives you deeper understanding of the context and the history of the space in which you move and the people with whom you interact. And that for
Yeah,
me is actually the true promise of immersive technologies.
totally. What's the one thing people inside the industry tend to misunderstand about where immersive tech is really heading?
I think the industry's got a pretty good grasp of it. I mean, I think people. Sorry, did you ask inside or outside?
Sorry, people inside the immersive tech industry.
Yeah, I think people inside the immersive industry. I don't see like too many divisions or camps. It's
Mm.
really kind of us against the speed at which the technology is developing. Um, but I do think there's a lot of misunderstanding from the outside. But that said, I think also internally, I think there's a lot of concern. I wouldn't call it misunderstanding. There's a lot of concern about making sure that we as an industry don't cross the lines that should not be crossed in terms of privacy and data storage and all these kinds of things that we really need to be careful about, especially when we end up with glasses with forward-facing cameras that are on potentially, you know, all the time. And how we manage that will actually be the measure of our success as an industry. If we blow that, no one's going to use these products. And that is something the industry is actually very, very aware of. So one of the things that gratifies me very much about working with the XR space is that the people in the XR space have a higher level of ethics and a higher awareness of ethics. And ethics is more to the forefront of discussions in this section of technology than in any other one that I participate in.
I think 'cause there's so much at stake, isn't there? Particularly from an augmented reality point of view, because like you say, with forward-facing cameras, where it's kind of looking at people's faces or kind of kind of whatever it may be, it is a high stakes gamble that I think if the industry doesn't get it right from a privacy point of view, then yeah, it could completely, I guess, kind of sacrifice everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for the whole industry, it may not be the case that one mistake will doom everybody, but for individual companies, that may be the case, especially because we've got a lot of smaller companies. And so if word gets out that headset A did bad things with user data, then headset A is dead. And
Yeah.
and so and so great, it creates an opportunity for headset B, but that's not the way that anybody wants this to play. So the great thing is that we've got examples of all kinds of companies who have really messed this up. And so we got a lot of things to learn from that I actually do see the whole XR industry actively learning from.
Yeah.
And there's organizations like the Virtual World Society, for example, that I'm a member of, that are actively working to make sure that this technology develops in an ethical way.
There definitely does seem to be a lot more, I guess, kind of collaborative approach, doesn't there? I think, as far as the XR community is concerned, to get aspects like this right, and you know, like, and a lot more of a joined up thinking way of kind of approaching this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we've just all seen what's at stake and what happens if you really blow it. So,
Yeah.
the warning signs are there, and you ignore them at your peril.
So I guess kind of moving on to the hot topic that everybody's talking about at the moment, AI. Um, it's obviously kind of making waves in immersive experiences. I mean, where do you think it's kind of adding value today?
Oh, value today. Well, I think the initial the AI headsets, like for example, or AR headsets rather, or you could call them AI headsets, at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this January. There were a lot of AR glasses, but it was astonishing to see the shift from the previous year, where the previous year had been very focused on video and doing things like being able to see large screen movies and play games and things like that. Um, and the shift had really everybody had incorporated some kind of audio agent into the phones. And so this idea, so we're, the main thing right now is being able to use this AR glasses as your kind of immersive chat, GPT or llama or whatever friend and assistant to be able to ask questions, as you move through the world and get information. But where it's going is, eh, I think Ori Inbar, the founder of AWE, the Augmented World Expo
Mm,
that happens every year, he said it best 2 years ago. XR is the interface to AI, and I completely completely agree with that in our everyday life. Um, because the drawback with actually using something like this is that we remove ourselves from our world to stare at this
yes. Yeah.
screen. Yeah, and so, the piece of glass becomes our world, and we separate ourselves from the place and the people that we're with. And so by moving to some kind of, consumer level AR glasses, which are still very much in development, um, that actually lets us stay in our world and actually receive, and right now it's just audio,
Mm,
but the idea to eventually get visual cues to help us understand and to move through and to have more fun in the world that we're in. That's actually for me the holy grail of AR. Um, uh, and so and that's and the idea moving over to thinking about VR and where the fully immersive world works, to be able to use AI to generate situations or scenarios, environments on the fly, perhaps with your voice, that kind of thing. AI is going to completely revolutionize all of XR, and so the two just completely go together. And there's people working on all of the threads of things that I just talked about.
yeah. I mean, there's kind of lots of debate about kind of AI's role in creativity, and whenever you mention a post online about it, I think people kind of proverbially turn up with burning torches and pitchforks. But do you kind of see it enhancing kind of human-driven immersive design, or will it, or do you think it will eventually replace parts of the creative process?
Well, you're absolutely right about the burning torches and pitchforks, because I just last week I met the advertising agency that created the first fully AI commercials, and they ran for Coca-Cola here in the United
Yes, I
States
saw those
over
online
over
actually. Yeah.
Christmas. Right? They got death threats after that. The people involved making that literally got death threats, and I suppose it was from traditional content creators or media people. I see AI as well, and the thing is, the reason I'm mentioning them, if you talk to them, what AI didn't determine what was in the commercial. AI was just a tool to let them bring this thing to life, and and it's a very give and take kind of thing. And so AI as your co-creator. So yes, I have a very positive and optimistic view as AI as this highly imaginative co-creator. But there's a limitation because generative AI is working on the database of stuff that's already been fed into it.
Mm.
And yes, it's an enormous database of everything that already exists, but it's limited to the stuff that already exists. If you want to create something that doesn't exist yet, if you want to truly be creative, that has to come from you.
Yeah.
And so the interplay between people and the AI to enhance human creativity, I think is actually yes, it's let's go. It's like the in chess, the best chess players, the ones that are the most difficult to beat. It's not a human alone, it's not a computer alone. It's what they call a centaur, which is a human computer thing where a computer analyzes the board, offers some moves, and then the human picks which one to do.
Okay.
That's an unbeatable combination
Yes.
in chess. Well, not unbeatable, but anyway, yeah, it's they're the winners. They're the best statistically, and I think we see the same in creativity. So denying the role of AI, I'd rather have somebody feeding me really excellent ideas for me to then take as something that I fly from. I'd rather fly from a higher perch than a
Mm.
lower one, and I think AI gives you the opportunity to have that higher perch.
I think it's the one thing it's really exceptional at, isn't it? I think it's taking something from a, blank. I think normally taking something from a blank sheet of paper, or like initially kind of just getting started. I think is always the kind of hardest part in the creativity process, whether you're writing or whatever it may be. And it's the one thing I love about it. I think is that it just helps to give you that push off. So you don't want it to do the whole thing for you, like you say, but I think it's almost just, yeah, it's that kind of co-pilot really to kind of work with you rather than just replace you.
Absolutely, because you can't be lazy. I heard anecdotally there was a company that put up a job opening, and they got like 250 people applying for it, and like 170 of them had the same cover letter because
Really?
they had all taken the job description and fed it into ChatGPT. And ChatGPT had printed a essentially very similar cover letter, and they hadn't changed it. They hadn't changed it, so that made it really easy for the recruiting company to go, okay, not you guys,
Yes.
but the ones who then take that as the base and then do something with that and use that as the higher perch to jump off of,
Yeah.
yeah, those are the ones that actually win the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
definitely.
this AI is not a license for laziness, and those who perceive it that way are totally missing the point.
Mm. I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think that there is so much, because we see it a heck of a lot, because when we put posts out about AI, particularly in the creative process, yeah, I mean the kind of vitriol or kind of post that people then want to put out about it, I think is quite, yeah, it's quite a severe reaction. Is the simplest way to put it, I think. So, I think yeah, I think it is definitely a facilitator rather than a replacer.
Right. But I will say there's a caveat here to my unbridled optimism, which which is if we have AI doing the low level boring tasks, in any domain, whether it's writing basic marketing text or doing very low level engineering kind of like I don't know what engineers do, but like
Engineer stuff. No,
engineering things, because those are it's like the drudge work that humans actually really would prefer not to do, and that's actually the stuff that AI is really good at right now. The problem is that we humans don't learn. We don't get trained up, and so we don't develop the expertise to then. I don't know. It's and that's actually going to be a gap. And this is something that I'm starting to hear from young people. They're saying, we where companies are only hiring experts right now because they're getting AI to do the grunt level stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So, okay, well, how am I, as a young person, ever going to become an expert if I never get a chance to do the hands-on things that will teach me to be an expert? And that's something we have to address. We have to be conscious about this. And, is the answer VR training for everything? I don't know. But that's a problem that we have to solve.
The thing is, from an experience point of view, though, like you say, you kind of I guess you learn your professional, your trade, whatever it may be, from from starting at the grassroots level, don't you? So I think they'll end up being like a. I think there's a problem for the whole, probably for most industries where they're adopting AI. If that is the case, and those low level functional roles are being, the AI is doing those, then by the time those people in senior roles, retire or leave the industry or whatever, then who's going to come in and kind of almost do those jobs? So
Right,
yeah,
right. It's on the other hand, though, I kind of one of my touchstones for thinking about how AI is coming in is the fact that I was in high school when the pocket calculator, an affordable pocket calculator first came out,
yeah,
and it was a scandal. It was a scandal, and so in my high school classes, my chemistry teacher let us use the calculator, my physics teacher let us use the calculator, but my calculus teacher did not, and it was a huge debate. And right, and like, what will children be? Children will not know how to add 2 plus 2 if they have a calculator all the time. And what has happened is that now, fast forward a whole bunch of decades, and now my children are required to have a TI-85
yes,
in their calculus class, and it's a graphics calculator. It's like, like, what? It does the graphic for you too? Are you kidding me? So you don't even have to. So what changes is our tools, and perhaps my fear about getting the expertise, it's the same as a pocket calculator. Maybe I don't need to multiply 387 by 295 longhand all the time. I use a calculator for that.
yeah,
And then I save my thinking for the upper level things. And it's my ability to use the tool that sets me apart from the others. And so maybe the answer for the question that I just posed is about how young people get experience is maybe the young people become the masters of the tool.
yeah,
And in fact, now that I think about it, that probably is the answer.
yeah. Okay. So when you kind of look at the, I guess, kind of convergence point then of kind of AI, immersive tech, and 5G, what's a kind of real world example of this convergence where you think it's not getting enough attention?
Okay. So, let's take 5G out of that question, and let's just ask that same question about just connectivity in general.
Sure.
And one of the so I'm a trend scout, and I've been doing trend scouting for the last 10 years. And so looking at emerging technologies and seeing the patterns of what takes off and what doesn't. When new thing Because there's always spectacular ideas, things that you see is like, oh my god, some genius. Wow, I never would have thought of that. But not everything becomes something that everybody uses. And what actually distinguishes the things that people actually pick up is whether something solves a problem or not, and whether the it solves a problem at a lower cost than whatever the previous solution was, if there
Yeah,
was one. And the cost can be time, it can be money, it can be fiddliness, it can be all kinds of things. So it needs to be better, and it needs to genuinely solve a problem. And so my poster child for something that didn't do that is like 3D TV. Not a problem for me that my TV is 2D,
yeah,
and apparently for nobody else either. So fabulous technology, but nobody really seems to need it. Okay, fine.
yeah,
And the question that we have to ask right now is when we look at XR, um, what is the problem that needs to be solved? And the problem that needs to be solved is the hardware. The hardware right now, the VR headsets are still heavy and bulky, and limited by the connectivity that you have, the Wi-Fi that you have, and consumer AR glasses are also limited in terms of hardware. You can do like I think the Meta has actually 3 separate tracks right now with their headsets that they're developing. One has the Ray-Bans that has the audio interface, and that's totally commercial. Then they've got the 2 developer ones. One that has a two-dimensional interface, that's the Orion, and then you've got the Aria, which is the one that actually has it creates three-dimensional objects. But they've had to that's technically it's so hard. They've had to separate those into 3 separate tracks
mhm,
to develop them individually. And of course, at some point, we hope they all come together into a single headset. Um, but part of the problem is that these headsets, a lot of the computing is being done on the headset,
yeah,
and that makes them hot. It makes them heavy. It makes them expensive. Or if you look at the Orion, Meta's developer. headset they've got right now. Um, it actually has a puck that you put in your pocket. Word on the street is, I hear that the puck gets really, really hot after a while. And so, one of the things that Meta's done to actually prevent that from burning holes into people's legs is limiting the battery life of the headset to 2 hours, because beyond
Okay,
2 hours,
right,
the puck gets too hot, right? But
right,
2 hours, that's not long enough. Okay, this is still like work in progress. It's for developers only, fine. But we can see that the question of where you put the computing is key. And this is something that affects not just XR headsets, but also drones, robotics, all kinds of visual analytics that are starting to get integrated into all kinds of consumer products that are out there. Where do you put that compute? Because if you put it into the end device, it makes the end device expensive, it draws down the battery life, and it makes them get hot. And so this is where and so connectivity has not played a role in this so far. But where we in the connectivity industry, one of the things that we're working on right now is a thing called AI RAN. RAN stands for the Radio Access Network. It's the technical term for just mobile networks.
right.
The idea is to put excess computing that's available for third-party products into base stations.
Okay.
And right, it's basically edge computing, right?
Yeah,
But the difference now is that we've got NVIDIA interested in doing this, and they're actually spearheading putting their GPUs into base stations. And so we're investigating right now, we at Nokia are investigating with NVIDIA, with T-Mobile, um, what happens when you move the RAN calculations from a CPU that they've been on before in the base station to a GPU. And then you've got this excess computing
mm,
to be able to do things like network orchestration functions. Okay, fine. But also excess computing left for all kinds of third party tasks, like the computing for AR glasses,
yeah,
like the computing for drones, like the visual analytics for this is something I saw at CES, a cat door that analyzes whether the cat is bringing in a mouse or a bird in its mouth and refuses to open. It's it's there's all kinds of things that having paying the extra to have the visual analytic chip in that end device doesn't make sense, or the heat doesn't make sense, or the battery life doesn't make sense. But taking it one step away and now having robust connectivity, wireless connectivity that's available out there in the world, not just on Wi-Fi in your
yeah,
home,
yeah,
um, will make the difference. And so that's actually where connectivity is. That's something we're working on right now. This is a long-term thing. This is really something that we're really going to see make a difference probably in around 2030. I mean, it is such early days.
yeah,
But AI RAN is, I think, the secret sauce to how we're finally going to get full function AI AR headsets for consumers that they'll actually wear.
yeah. Good thing, like you say, because then if the computational processing is being done, then kind of not on the device, then it kind of makes it easier to kind of have it a bit more, yeah, kind of like I guess a real world pair of glasses, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And and so and right, and the battery life lasts much longer. Also, there's a sustainability factor here, because if you don't have to put a big silicon chip into every single end device, you can put much smaller silicon chips and actually draw on a central computing kind of thing. That's actually really good for the heavy metals mining of the world. So this is win-win, win-win, win-win. In just all kinds of ways. Now we just have to build it and make it happen.
It's easy. What's the problem? Come on, let's get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. But just to give an idea of the scope of the change, this is actually moving from CPUs in a C++ environment to GPUs in a Python environment,
Yeah,
and so it's changing everything, right? And so and from what I hear, and I need to investigate this a little more, Python's apparently not so hot with latency. So if you've got Python, it's not super speedy. That's not good if you're dealing with augmented reality. So anyway, there's a lot of technical things that need to be addressed. That's why it's not going to be here like that.
yeah.
But these are the things that our little Nokia elves are, working underground to make this happen. And so someday it'll be in a shop near you, but we got some problems to solve
It's a
first.
fantastic thing to look forward to in the next 5 years, though. Like you say, if it is that, yeah, you can kind of wear a normal pair of, normal pair of glasses, and yeah, they've got kind of VR connectivity and things in them. Then, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And there's other companies that are working on the other kinds of problems that are out there and solving things like, the optics and everything. So the to get to the AR glasses that that you and I probably have in mind as holy grail. There's a lot of physics problems that need to be solved, but the good news is there's lots of really fabulous people who are working on it, different teams working on the different problems, and we're all going to converge, and it's
Yeah.
going to be magnificent.
As
Yeah.
much as I hate to say it, I think I think the kind of Marvel films kind of laid the mark out. Unfortunately, so a false pretense, I think, for Tony Stark's glasses, in terms of what everyone's expecting it to be. So that's almost a benchmark now that it's got to live up to.
Yeah, but hey, don't laugh because science fiction and science fiction movies in particular, or books as well, they help pave the way.
Yeah,
They help um, consumers understand what something is when it actually hits the market. And in fact, one of the problems that happened with Nokia back in the day was back in the mobile phone days. Um, so Nokia had a decision to make. Were they going to stick with the kind of the candy bar phones, the solid state things, or were they going to go to the flip open
yeah.
phones? Um, and okay, so the Nokia head engineer, he's like, no, candy bar makes sense. Having a flip open phone, that just introduces a completely unnecessary point of potential failure. Why would I ever want to do that? But here's the thing: Star Trek never played in Finland. And
Okay,
so the
right. It,
and so
right.
so
What?
Finns
Right.
had no Finns did not speak Star Trek. They had not ever seen Captain Kirk flip open a communicator,
Right.
whereas all of North America had. So Motorola comes out with the Razr and the other flip phones, and they completely dominate the market. Nokia's like, why is nobody buying our candy bars? And it's because the public imagination had already been determined 30 years before
Yeah.
by a television show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I actually look at what comes out through science fiction in the movies very seriously,
Yeah.
because it does pave an acceptance path that, again, you ignore at your peril. It is much better to follow the path, follow the steamroller,
Yeah.
right? If it's already knocked down a lot of the bushes for you, follow the smooth path. Don't go hacking off into the bushes on your own.
Well, yeah, exactly. It makes it a heck of a lot easier, doesn't it? So kind of moving on then. I mean, when we, I guess, kind of talk about one of the books that you've written in Interconnected Realities, you kind of explored how immersive tech is evolving. Do you think kind of terms like kind of AR, VR still define this space, or have we outgrown those labels? Do you think?
When I'm talking about all of this, I tend to use XR, or I tend to use spatial computing,
Yeah,
because it's a spectrum, and and basically, you've got full, just fully physical, no digital whatsoever over here, and then fully immersive VR over here. And then everything in between um, is enhancing our life some way. Like you and I right now, we're actually interacting. You could consider this an immersive experience
yes,
because you and I, yeah, we're sharing our actual locations. I'm here in California and you're there in the UK, and we've magically managed to combine our spaces into this one conversation zone. This is a flippin' miracle, and so and we don't spend enough time going, oh my god, we do have this power, this is a superpower. And so so because we are taking these things for granted, but we're also getting a better understanding, this kind of like the digital enhanced, non-digital enhanced. And yeah, so I spatial computing, XR, those are the terms that I use because it yes, if you want to be specific about the hardware, sure, AR, VR, but
yeah.
in terms of digital versus non-digital, yeah, XR works for me.
Which industry is making serious moves in immersive tech that most people wouldn't expect?
Okay, one of the breakthrough award winners at AWE, Augmented World Expo, which happens every June in Long Beach in California, and that's the main. If you're interested in XR, that's the place to go. That's like the main conference. But and one of the award winners was Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, because they have been using AR to speed and to refine and to eliminate errors in the way that they handle and manage pharmaceuticals. And that is something that has actually really taken off through the entire pharmaceutical industry. Pfizer was the first one that I knew about it because of the prize that they won at AWE,
Mm.
but it is something that the entire pharmaceutical industry has picked up because they have seen the benefits. And and with pharmaceuticals, you don't want anybody to be making a mistake about the quantities and the makeup of the actual drugs that are being
Yes. Yeah.
created. And AR is a way that actually gives these companies a backstop, and they are leaning into it and embracing it. And I don't think that has gotten nearly enough publicity because that's something that ultimately affects all of us if you have any
Mm.
prescription medicines that you take at all.
What's the biggest hurdle that you think is holding back mass adoption for immersive tech?
Hardware. Hardware.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for the good commercial hardware.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. But yeah.
So kind of moving on to, I guess the other book that you've been written, or you've written, sorry, or you've been keeping yourself busy and being a novelist. Um, Kind of virtual natives. Your kind of other book that you've written. You talk a lot about kind of Gen Z and Gen Alpha and how they interact with technology differently. What do you think are the biggest shifts that businesses need to prepare for this?
This is a generation. It's kind of looking at everybody since 2000. And the thing is that they have grown up swiping before they could even talk.
Mm.
And so even before language acquisition, this generation has been immersed in understanding technology and what it can do, and so they eat, sleep, and breathe this technology. Now, there and COVID, of course, kind of exacerbated a lot of the negative sides with isolation and everything. But when Catherine Henry, my co-author, and I, when we started looking at, and the reason we wrote the book was we're like, all you're ever hearing is about the negative effects of these technologies on young people. But what we were seeing in our own lives was actually positive
Yeah.
effects. And so the book is actually exploring the positive effects. And that's what we found. And what we found even more positive effects than we expected to find. And one of the main things was there was a fearlessness and a willingness to rethink processes and things that already exist.
Yeah.
And one of the simplest ways to talk about this is, for example, kind of the digital native generation. That term was coined in 2000, and that was when you've got kids that have grown up having a computer in the house, like, oh, but it's kind of pre-internet. And so the digital natives, um, that came from an era when companies were taking existing processes out there in the analog world and the physical world and moving them onto a computer. And so an email is a really good example here. The email icon looks like a little envelope. The save disk, the save symbol looks like a little CD-ROM
Yes.
disk.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ask a Gen Z person what the save disk what's that icon represent? They have no idea. They're probably going to recognize an envelope. But if you hand someone from Gen Z a physical envelope and say, here, put a stamp on this and address it and write a thank you letter to your grandmother, they can't do it.
It
So
sounds like you've taken that
this
from personal experience, Leslie.
yes, 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 it is. This is directly from personal experience. And so, because what they know, so the first wave of digitization was actually digitizing existing processes without rethinking them. So when I get an email, because I'm an older person, and so I'm still working with email, it functions exactly the way that mail does.
Yes.
I choose who I send it to, and they either look at it or they don't. I may probably don't know, and they put it in a bin. Anyway, functions exactly like mail. It just happens to be on a computer. But the new generation is reimagining these processes. They're going, well, this doesn't make any sense. And so what comes up is things like Slack, things like Discord, ways of communicating that are project based or group based, and that actually makes a lot more sense and completely rethinks the flow and the structure of how we communicate with each other in a way that is completely divorced from the original physical processes. Because this generation has not experienced the physical processes that limit our thinking,
Mm.
unfortunately, completely subconsciously, but they limit our thinking. This generation is free to completely reimagine how things could be and should be. And they've got the example of being able to make money from their early years. My 15-year-old son, well, when he was 15, he had to file his first tax returns because he'd earned so much money playing Fortnite.
Blimey.
And
Right.
yeah, and so they're earning money online starting from age 13. It's you have to be 13 to legally make money online, at least in the United States. And both my kids started making money online, as soon as they could. And excuse me. So they also see an alternative world in which a 9 to 5 job, eh, may be optional. So they are not going to play along with the I have to be at work every day. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? That's not efficient. They are looking at things in terms of outcomes and in terms of what are the efficient steps that get them there rather than what are the norms that went before. And so I think we're going to see a huge amount of reimagining, reconstructing, and any old and slow industry, you know, mortgage people, watch out because these guys are going to come for you.
Yeah.
Um, anything that is fundamentally originally paper based and hasn't changed, even if the documents are now electronic. I think within the next decade, spearheaded by younger people, we're actually going to see all of this upended.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I know I'll just kind of show my age for a second. I mean, I think that it still blows my mind how kind of some of the younger generations, like some of the revenues and kind of money that people make through kind of almost seemingly kind of random things. I mean, even sorry, I just it must sound a bit ridiculous, but even when you kind of look at YouTube and things like that, or people on Instagram and like level of money that people are making from it. I find it fascinating, and but it's still one of those things. Like as an older person, I guess it still kind of almost blows my mind to try and comprehend it.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems, I mean, it's easy, to be old man yells at cloud, old man yells at YouTube, uh,
Not
kind
far
of
short of that,
person.
Jesus.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, old is not quite right here. Sorry. I'm pretty sure I'm older than you are. But um but the power that and another really key thing here also is that because of things like TikTok and YouTube, um this generation, who they see as an authority has completely changed. It's no longer kind of the elder statesman, or elder stateswoman that you might have seen on TV, on your evening news, the news anchor kind of figure from my generation.
Yeah.
Now, the place that they look to authority are their peers, and it's the peers who express themselves are charismatic and are authentic. So charisma and authenticity actually are kind of the grounding for authority rather than age and experience. Um, and and this can actually be this is for good and for ill, but I think we need to, you can't fight against it. You can't be King Canute,
Yeah.
saying tide go away. It's this is what it is, and so you need to work with it.
Mm,
And so and this is true for companies and governments and societies, and so if this is what it is, lean into it.
yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
So, kind of younger generations don't separate physical and digital spaces.
right.
How should kind of immersive tech and industries kind of adapt to that mindset?
I think, and so just to kind of give an example of the of what you mean, if you particularly the gaming community. If you're a gamer, then you're actually meeting and interacting with people from all over the world
Yeah.
in your gaming. And you may have a gaming team. Your Fortnite team may be people. In fact, it probably is people that you've never met in person, and yet you form this really close bond with these people by playing together. Um, and and so those friendships are real, and it doesn't and that's it doesn't matter that it happened in a digital realm rather than a physical realm. But the friendships and the ways that humans interact with each other, that is always real no matter the medium. And that means that we actually need to have the same things that are good about relationships are true in both the physical and the digital world, but also the same things that are true that are bad about in the physical world are also bad in the digital world. So things like somebody squeezing up too close to you in person, and that's also really uncomfortable when you're in an immersive world. And so we need to not just kind of give everything digital a free pass. Oh, that's just digital. It doesn't matter. If you've ever been like in a VR environment and had somebody come and like press their avatar up against you, it's like yeah, and especially if you're female.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it doesn't change anything. So I think we need to make sure that we have the same kind of respect for others, that we carry that through into the immersive spaces. Everything that we would expect of respectful interactions in the physical world, we need to make sure that those are expected, and that's how we all behave in the immersive world.
Do you think there's disparity then, I think, between kind of older generations and younger generations that necessarily older generations don't get that in the, so if I'm going to say, like you're saying, a kind of, putting a VR headset on and, somebody coming and standing too close to you or you kind of invading your personal space, I guess, kind of in a VR world, do you think there's a disparate or disconnect there between generations that kind of, and older people might think that that's perfectly fine because it's not happening in the real world?
I would theoretically, maybe so, but, put on a VR headset and have somebody come and stand up right next to you, and you'll change your mind really
Totally, yeah.
fast.
It's funny because I remember when the Quest 2 came out because I bought one because it was kind of in the midst of the pandemic and I think it came out in the September and so I kind of went on. I was kind of in some of the communal spaces when it first launched, kind of playing around in there and I think when obviously Christmas time came around like a couple of months later, and I've said like all the kids got one for Christmas, and then the next minute it was packed. I remember going in kind of like over the Christmas period, and yeah, it was heaving, and I was like, yeah, no, 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 it's not for me, and I kind of didn't go.
Exactly, exactly. And so, but one experience that I had recently that was really interesting in this realm is uh, at Mobile World Congress, I ran into Tipatat, who's an XR VC guy, and he showed me he had an Oculus, he had a Quest 3 with him, and he showed me something that I think he's invested in. It's a company called Gracia, and what they're doing is three-dimensional Gaussian splat videos,
Okay.
and so he had, we're just sitting there in the lunch court, right? And he hands me the Oculus 3, and I put it on, and here's this Gaussian splat, so very, very high definition, highly rendered, three-dimensional video of a man who's slicing. He's a chef and he's slicing fish, and it just seems to appear on the table in front of us. It was amazing. It was three dimensions. I could walk around it, and here, and it was just spectacular
Yeah.
quality. But then I realized, because it's a video, this has been pre-recorded. This is not an actual human being. This is not an avatar. There's nobody behind this. I could actually get my head. I could stick my head basically into the center of this guy's chest, right, to look right at the salmon and the details, and it made me realize this might actually be super good for training,
Yes.
because if the classic, you're trying to learn surgery techniques or something from VR. If there's a live person who's an avatar who's actually, or something in there, if you go, well, actually in person, if there's somebody demonstrating, and here's how you tie off this artery, if you stick your head right there, you're blocking their view, you're getting into their space, it's bad. But these 3D Gaussian splat videos, there's nobody there. And so you can really get right into the details. And so, the possibilities for training here, it's going beyond what's possible when we're doing these things in humans. And this goes back to what I was saying about solving a problem. And sometimes it's a problem that you don't realize exists. So if a surgeon is showing you a technique, it may not have occurred to anybody that's a problem that you yourself can't like stick your head right there. Um, and so, but it turns out when you get this technology that lets you do that, you realize in retrospect, oh, that was a problem, and now I can learn much better by getting right up in the action without disturbing anybody.
That's amazing.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something I'm excited about right now.
What's one way that Gen Zs and Alphas are using immersive tech then that would really surprise older generations?
Ah, I think especially with all the news about how social media is causing alienation and loneliness and everything, without wanting to downplay the fact that especially with COVID, there has been a splintering and a fragmenting of society. Um, I think that older generations would be surprised to learn how much society there is online, how much community younger generations find and rely on online. And this particularly goes for people who um, might be in, I don't know, smaller towns or more remote areas where there may be fewer people um, who can align with the way that they think. It's, for whatever reason, whether you're somebody who likes to wear red socks or you're LGBT, um, being online is a place where you can find your community, and younger people are finding community, so it's actually a source of support and inspiration far more than is actually making it into the media right now.
Yeah. So I guess kind of as we start to look forward, Dan, I mean, where do you think immersive tech is going to make the biggest impact in the next 5 years?
Ooh, in the next 5 years, I think we're actually going to see. We're still limited a little bit to the hardware and the fact that we don't have a fully fledged consumer AR glasses with all the bells and whistles, and that's still at least 5 years away, I'd say. Um, but so enterprise now, I think we're going to start getting news because enterprise is a place where you will put on a pair of slightly heavier glasses with limited battery life in order to do a task, and so I think we'll get start hearing from more industries that, like the pharmaceutical industry, have discovered that AR really changes their ability to drive efficiency and fundamentally affect their bottom line with spectacular return on investment. So we're going to be getting more and more of that. Um, and then and then I think we're going to see more on the consumer side. We'll see more integration with AI and more integration with the idea of an agent that can actually help you and guide you through your day. Almost I don't know if we're going to have like AI buddies along the lines of her. Um, I don't know if I need that, but I don't know. We'll see.
It's interesting. I saw someone online that had built a kind of using agentic AI, had built a kind of model of her. And yeah, it was, which is the film with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson voices, just in case
Right, right.
anyone's not seen it. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, but he built a kind of full replica, like kind of audio, sorry, agentic AI replica, and it was amazing. Um, yeah,
Well, and what was interesting was, if I remember the movie right, he never saw her. It was a
yes,
voice interface only.
yes, yeah,
And I think our industry has, even with that movie, a steamroller to show us the way,
yeah,
we underestimated as an industry the power of voice and the power of voice interaction. And I think we are going to get some really serious voice stuff. At the same time, we actually have people interacting with through companies like Replica with visual represented AI pals, and I'm not saying that's the be all and the end all, but I do believe in the integration of AI with our lives in a way that assists us. And for some people, that will take the form of a buddy. In others, it will be more depersonalized.
yeah,
But but for me, the thing that I'm really waiting for is that gamification of everyday tasks that I spoke about earlier. There was a long time ago, I saw on Twitter, it was a guy named his handle was Pixel Guy, um, and he created something using an early Oculus where he was able to drop using a VR headset and his vacuum cleaner in his living room at home. He was able to put on his VR headset, and he had this is before pass through. So he had represented digitally his living room, and he anchored it to his headset. And then in his virtual living room, which was mapped to his physical living room, he dropped euros all over the floor that he was then able to vacuum up with his physical vacuum cleaner. And so it turned vacuuming into a game. And uh, and uh, and and also he was able to and the way that he built it, he was able to buy, some kind of digital good with the coins after he finished the vacuuming, but it also made sure he didn't miss any spots
Yeah.
because you can see, oh, there's a coin, I haven't gotten there yet. That, I mean, hey, Meta, if you're listening, or any developers, if you're listening, um, with the with the pass through now, absolutely give me something in the Quest 3 that'll make my vacuuming fun.
Yeah.
Put euros all over my floor. I want that now. I want that today. That's possible because once we start gamifying everyday tasks, once we start gamifying everyday chores, I think that's gonna be a huge I was gonna say Pandora's box. That's not a good analogy. That's a huge, good, happy box, happy
Yeah.
meal. It's
Good
a
thinking. Yeah.
yeah, it's something really good.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a and thinking about monetization for a second. That's gonna be a money pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I could have glasses that make it more fun to do any of the laundry, vacuuming, whatever, or making my kids like stay out of the house longer with the dog when they walk the dog. You have to go by these 3 checkpoints, and then you'll collect gold every when you hit them. It's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, totally. So while we kind of like stay in the future, I mean, we kind of talk about technologies like spatial computing, which is obviously evolving very quickly. Do you think it'll ever replace? I mean, I know there's a lot of talk, and I know Tim Cook mentioned it that I think the future is wearables. Do you think it will replace screens and devices, or do you think there'll always be that kind of
Nah,
coexistence between the two?
coexistence. I mean,
Yeah,
just within my house here, my kids upstairs have pedestal PCs because they're gamers, and so that PC clicking and whirring with a big fan and lights and stuff under the desk, we still have one of those. My laptop, I still do a lot of stuff on laptop because the keyboard is good. I do a lot of stuff on the smartphone, obviously, because that's the thing that's out there. When I'm out of the house and even when I'm in the house, for rapid access to things that don't need a keyboard or a larger screen. And then I think once we actually get to the headsets, there will be tasks that go onto the headsets, but then there will be other tasks that still live better on something with a keyboard or on something where you've got a screen where you've got a rapid touch interface. It's horses for courses, and so it's going to take some tasks, but not all.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and they'll integrate. They'll integrate. It may be like right now, my phone does facial recognition for me to get into, things like my banking and things like that. It may be that the glasses do some kind of iris recognition that do a guarantee that lets you then access something on your computer or access something on your phone. So they will be working together. So we never fully eliminate the stuff that goes before. We just build on it and we figure out which use case works best for which piece of hardware.
yeah. Amazing. If you had unlimited resources to create the kind of ultimate immersive tech, what would it be?
Oh gosh, it would actually be the gamification of everyday tasks that I talked about. Yeah, that seems to me to be very low hanging fruit that would actually I'm going to say a word here. Um, Uh, I I used to use this example of the vacuuming with the virtual euros, uh, and and there's one country that I went to in an emerging market, and usually when I gave that as an example, people in the audience would go, "Oh yeah, oh my god, that's great." And there was one emerging market that I went to, and I gave that example, and there's just like silence. And so then I asked the local Nokia people afterwards, like, "That's funny, the vacuum example usually gets a better response than that." And they looked at me, they said, "Everybody has servants here." Nobody's actually vacuumed in that audience. And so
Oh
I'm like,
no.
"Oh, okay, okay." So the technologists need to perceive that there's a problem. Now, I don't wanna call out the XR industry too badly, but if it's a lot of young men that aren't doing a lot of vacuuming, maybe that's why that application hasn't been developed yet. So I think a call for a wide range of experiences to see the needs that are out there. Even as DEI is getting very slammed in my country right now, there is a need for it, and it actually does link to a business need. You Right, you've got to be able to understand what the problems are, and the problems that you have are not the same as the problems that other people have. So you need to have other people in your company and sitting at your table with a voice to be able to understand the opportunities that are out there that you may not see.
Totally. What's the most exciting immersive tech project or tool that you've seen recently?
Oh my God. Okay, this is a totally different category from anything I've been talking about. Okay, so this is it's a VR meeting space or virtual meeting space. The company is Arthur, and they're originally German, but they're international. They have and this is one of the things that I'm very excited about when we actually use our technology to rethink a pre-existing process and to change things and make it better. That's when we actually get step changes in our level of functioning. And Arthur has done this with meetings.
Yeah.
And so they have introduced an AI moderator into their meetings. And the meeting type that they have really reimagined is kind of the briefing meeting, where if you imagine, here's a team of 10 people and you've got an hour and everybody goes around the table and they spend 5 minutes updating everybody on what they've been doing. You have now just spent 50 minutes and now you have 10 minutes left to actually do whatever it is that you need to do based on what everybody has just said. And that's what we live with, and that's the way it's been forever. What Arthur does, so in this virtual setting, which can be in a headset or they've got a great web interface as well, so you can do it on a laptop. Um, it takes the first, 10 minutes of the meeting, and the AI moderator then splits itself into as many instances as there are people in the meeting, and you give it the problem or the discussion point, and then it goes and it interviews each of you simultaneously,
Wow.
and it says, okay, so what is it that, what are you seeing right now? What are the obstacles? What are the opportunities? And then it consolidates the information from all 10 people and puts it on a whiteboard. Right. So here's the areas of agreement where, everybody was saying pretty much the same thing. Here's the areas where we heard different things. These are the things that people would like to see going forward, and these might be the roadblocks. And then you can start your discussion from that, and you're only 10 minutes into the meeting. It's completely mind blowing using AI to literally rework a meeting in a way that's more efficient. And I mean, it sounds good to describe it, and it's something that actually really actually works when you have the experience. And so I, you know, I'm really really excited about this. I'm really excited for Arthur because it's genius. It's absolute genius. And this is a way in which, because virtual meetings, they solved a problem during COVID, but now that we're kind of, out of our houses again, what what problem are virtual meetings solving? Well, the introduction of the AI agent answers the question, what are virtual meetings for? They're for more efficiency because you can have this AI agent do this interview separately with everybody.
It's one
Um,
thing. It's one thing I absolutely love about AI. And kind of in the in the age that we're now at with it. I think where it's process improvement and speed and efficiency are just phenomenal. I think to the point now where kind of I tried. Well, it's hard to remember a time, I guess, where it kind of wasn't working with it because it just, yeah. I mean, for there's certain, as you mentioned before, I think about mundane and repetitive tasks. For certain aspects, it's fantastic.
It's well, but I think, the challenge for all of us is to not just accept, "Oh, it's good enough if I have AI do this thing that I used to do and it's boring and now the AI does it." Using AI to completely rethink the process, to focus on the outcome and say, "All right, if I were building this from scratch, how would I use AI to get there?" Um, and, uh, uh, and I don't want to, touch a political third rail here, but right now, obviously, the U.S. government is focused on becoming more efficient, and the way that they're doing it is by firing a lot of people. That's actually, I think that's a little wrong-headed. I have, okay, so I live in the United States. Every year, I have to gather up all of my information about all my financial transactions. I have to fill out a form, and I have to send it into the Internal Revenue Service, and that takes a long time. Well, I'm also a citizen of Finland, and the Finnish government, because everything from all the banking stuff, it's reported to the Finnish government. The Finnish government, it's all digitized. They have already collated it.
Right.
They actually send me a piece of paper once a year that says, here's what we have for you. Do you have any amendments you want to make? If so, send them in. If not, great, and so we're done here.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do anything for my Finnish taxes, where it takes me hours and even days to do my American taxes. And so if we, getting rid of a lot of people at the Internal Revenue Service is not the answer. Rethinking what's possible in terms of how we do the taxation process, that's really what we should be doing. We should be using AI to do that. And I just used, again, that was not a political commentary in any way, but as an example of speeding up existing processes is not the answer. Rethinking how to do it is the answer, using the spectacular tools that AI give us.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you'd give to anyone working in immersive technology?
Get it hands-on experiences with everything. Hands-on experiences with AI, hands-on experiences with all the hardware. Don't just think you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, call up Arthur, ask for a demo. Go check out Gracia, see what their Gaussian splats are. As because the real step changes happen not from a single piece of technology improving. It comes from when you actually have multiple things put together. So Uber was only possible once you had mobile telephones, location information, and secure payment. And those are all three very different areas that came from three very different industries. And then once Uber was able to put those building blocks together and create Uber. Airbnb, very similar thing. And so Uber didn't really create new technology. Well, okay, they did create some technology, but they worked on the building blocks created by others. So it's the a mobile payment system on itself. Okay, fine. But what it enables is the amazing thing. And so it's and you yourself are not going to understand the building blocks unless you're out there experiencing them. So the next great leaps are going to be from the person who experiences the Gaussian splat video and knows what's possible of that, and then combines it with whatever the other thing is. That's actually where the breakthroughs come from. It's from these combinations.
Yeah.
And you're not going to know unless you've been out there and been hands on with it.
Amazing. Well, Leslie, thank you very much. This has been an absolutely amazing conversation, and thank you very much for your time today and for sharing your insights around AI, immersive tech, and the future of digital interaction. For any of our audience that want to find you and or kind of dive deeper into your work on your books, where can they find you?
Oh, LinkedIn. I'm the only Leslie Shannon at Nokia. And always, always happy to connect with just about anybody.